The wind howled through the broken fence behind the small house on the edge of town, carrying dust and the smell of dry grass through the night air. Inside that house lived a girl who had learned very early that the world could be cruel. Her name was Amelia Carter. Amelia was only 16, but her eyes looked older, like someone who had already seen too much. Her real parents had died in a car accident when she was 8. After that, she had been sent to live with her father's cousin, Harold Bennett, and his wife Linda. They had smiled politely at the funeral, promising everyone they would take good care of her. But promises are easy to make when people are watching. The moment the doors closed and the guests disappeared, everything changed. Harold was a bitter man who believed the world owed him something it had never given. Linda was worse. She smiled sweetly in public, but had a sharp tongue that could cut deeper than a knife. To them, Amelia wasn't family. She was free labor. Every morning, Amelia woke up before sunrise. She cleaned the kitchen, washed the dishes from the night before, swept the floors, and prepared breakfast. If she missed anything, Linda would shout. If she moved too slowly, Harold would slam his fist on the table. "You're useless," Linda would say. "Your parents spoiled you." But Amelia knew that wasn't true. Her parents had been kind people. They taught her to believe in dreams, in education, in kindness. Those memories were the only warmth left in her life. School should have been her escape, but even that became difficult. Linda often refused to give her lunch money. Harold sometimes forced her to stay home and work instead. "You don't need school," he would say. "You need to earn your keep." Still, Amelia kept going whenever she could. She studied late at night, using a small lamp in the corner of her room. She dreamed of leaving that house one day. Dreams were the only thing they couldn't take from her. But even dreams have limits when the pain becomes too heavy. One winter night, everything fell apart. The cold was brutal that evening. Texas winters weren't usually harsh, but that year the wind cut through the walls like knives. Amelia had accidentally broken a plate while washing dishes. It slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Linda's scream came instantly. "You idiot!" The shouting that followed felt endless. Harold stormed into the kitchen, his face red with anger. "Do you think money grows on trees?" he barked. "I'm sorry," Amelia whispered. But apologies meant nothing in that house. Linda pointed toward the door. "Get out." Amelia blinked in shock. What? Get out." They pushed her outside into the freezing night with nothing but a thin sweater. The door slammed behind her. Amelia stood there, trembling as the cold wind wrapped around her like ice. She knocked once. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Inside the house, the lights went out. That was the moment she realized something terrifying. They didn't care if she survived the night. Tears filled her eyes as she slowly walked down the empty road. Streetlights flickered in the distance. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights briefly lighting her face before disappearing again. Amelia's heart felt completely broken. All the years of cruelty, loneliness, and pain suddenly felt unbearable. She wandered for hours until she reached an old bridge outside town. Below it, dark water flowed quietly through the night. The wind grew stronger, carrying the sound of rustling trees. Amelia leaned against the railing, staring down at the water. Her thoughts were heavy and confusing. She felt lost, completely alone. But just as the darkness inside her mind began to overwhelm her, a voice suddenly called out behind her. "Hey, are you okay?" Amelia turned slowly. A pickup truck had stopped on the side of the road. A tall man stepped out, wearing a heavy jacket and cowboy boots. His face looked serious but kind. "My name's Daniel Brooks," he said gently. "You shouldn't be out here alone." Amelia tried to wipe her tears quickly. "I'm fine." Daniel glanced at her thin sweater and shaking hands. "No, you're not." He walked closer but kept his distance, his voice calm. "Listen, I don't know what happened tonight, but I do know one thing. He pointed toward the dark road behind them. Your story doesn't end here. Amelia stared at him silently. Daniel opened the passenger door of his truck. Come on, let's get you somewhere warm. For a long moment, Amelia hesitated. Trust had become difficult after everything she had experienced. But something about Daniel's voice felt different. Honest. Kind. Slowly, she walked toward the truck. That decision would change her life forever. As the engine started and the heater filled the truck with warmth, Amelia looked out the window at the empty road, disappearing behind them. For the first time in years, a small spark of hope flickered inside her heart. She didn't know it yet, but the girl they had tried to break was about to become someone the world would never ignore again. And one day, she would return, not as a victim, but as a woman powerful enough to make everyone who hurt her remember her name. Amelia Carter. The heater inside Daniel Brooks' truck hummed softly as they drove through the quiet Texas highway. Amelia sat quietly, her hands wrapped around the warm cup of coffee Daniel had handed her from a gas station along the road. For the first time in years, someone had asked her a simple question. Are you okay? And meant it. Daniel didn't pressure her to talk. He simply drove, letting the silence sit comfortably between them. After a while, he said gently, You don't have to tell me everything tonight, but you should know something. Amelia looked up slightly. You're safe. Those two words felt strange to her. Safe. She had almost forgotten what that felt like. Eventually, they reached a small ranch house outside Texas Hill Country, surrounded by open land and oak trees. The porch light glowed warmly in the dark. Daniel parked the truck. This is my place, he said. It's not fancy, but it's warm. Amelia hesitated again, but Daniel opened the door and stepped out first, giving her space to decide. Inside the house smelled like fresh wood and coffee. A fireplace crackled in the living room. Daniel handed her a thick blanket. Sit down, I'll make something to eat. Amelia sat slowly on the couch, wrapping the blanket around herself. The warmth felt unreal. A few minutes later, Daniel returned with a bowl of hot soup and bread. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until that moment. As she ate, tears suddenly filled her eyes. Daniel noticed. Hey, he said softly, you don't have to cry. But Amelia shook her head. I'm not crying because I'm sad. Her voice trembled. I'm crying because no one has been this kind to me in a long time. That night, Amelia finally told her story. About her parents. About Harold and Linda. About the years of cruelty. Daniel listened quietly, without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. You've been through more than most adults, he said. Amelia lowered her eyes. I don't have anywhere to go. Daniel nodded slowly. Well, he said, you do now. She looked up, confused. You can stay here, he continued, at least until you figure out your next step. Amelia blinked in shock. Why would you help me? Daniel smiled slightly. Because someone helped me once when I needed it. That was the beginning of Amelia's new life. Daniel Brooks turned out to be more than just a kind stranger. He was a successful businessman who owned several ranches and energy investments across Texas. But despite his wealth, he lived a simple life and believed strongly in helping people who truly wanted to work hard. Amelia quickly proved she was one of those people. Within weeks, Daniel helped enroll her back in school. For the first time, Amelia could focus on studying without fear. She woke up early, finished her homework, and spent evenings reading books about business, leadership, and finance from Daniel's large library. Daniel often watched her from across the room with quiet pride. You've got a sharp mind, he told her one evening. Amelia shrugged shyly. I just don't want to waste this chance. And she didn't. Over the next 2 years, Amelia's determination amazed everyone around her. She graduated high school with outstanding grades. Then Daniel helped her apply for a business program at the University of Texas at Austin. When the acceptance letter arrived, Amelia held it with shaking hands. "I got in," she whispered. Daniel smiled proudly. "I told you your story wasn't finished. College changed everything." At first, Amelia felt out of place among students who had grown up with comfortable lives and supportive families. But she quickly realized something important. Hardship had given her strength. While others complained about difficult assignments, Amelia worked twice as hard. While others partied on weekends, Amelia studied business strategies and market trends. Her professors noticed. One of them told her, "You think like an entrepreneur." That idea stayed in her mind. By the time Amelia graduated, she had already started a small consulting company, helping struggling local businesses improve their operations. Her ideas worked. Businesses grew. Profits increased. Word spread quickly. Within 5 years, Amelia Carter had built a powerful business consulting firm operating across several cities in Texas. Investors began noticing her success. Soon she was appearing at major business conferences, speaking about leadership and resilience. Magazines started calling her one of the rising young entrepreneurs in Texas. The girl who once stood alone in the cold outside a broken house was now attending elite events, shaking hands with CEOs, and making million-dollar deals. Daniel watched it all with quiet pride. One evening, they sat together on the porch of the ranch house where everything had started. The sun was setting across the wide Texas fields. "You've done something incredible," Daniel said. Amelia smiled softly. "I couldn't have done it without you." Daniel shook his head. "No, I just opened the door, you walked through it." For a moment, silence settled between them. Then Amelia spoke again, her voice quieter. "There's something I've never told you." Daniel looked at her. "I never forgot what they did to me." The wind moved gently through the trees. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she continued, "but I want them to face the truth about how they treated me." Daniel nodded slowly. "That's not revenge," he said. "That's justice." Amelia stared across the horizon. The past no longer controlled her. But it hadn't disappeared either. Somewhere in that small town lived the people who had tried to destroy her. They believed she had disappeared forever. They believed they would never see her again. They were wrong. Because Amelia Carter was no longer a helpless orphan. She was powerful, successful, respected, and soon she would return. Not for anger, not for hatred, but to make sure everyone who once treated her like nothing would finally understand exactly who she had become. 10 years had passed since the cold night Amelia Carter walked away from the house that had once imprisoned her. 10 years since she had been a frightened, lonely girl with nowhere to go. Now everything was different. The black luxury SUV rolled smoothly along the quiet road, leading toward the small Texas town she once called home. The driver slowed as they approached the town sign. Amelia stared through the window. The same faded buildings. The same gas station. The same quiet streets. But she was no longer the same person. Today, Amelia Carter was known across Texas as one of the most influential young entrepreneurs in the state. Her consulting company had expanded into real estate, technology investments, and charitable foundations. Business magazines often called her a Texas success story. But no one in this town knew that story. Not yet. Beside her in the vehicle sat Daniel Brooks, the man who had saved her life that night on the bridge. His hair had grown grayer over the years, but his calm strength remained the same. "You ready?" he asked gently. Amelia nodded slowly. "Yes." The SUV stopped in front of the town hall. Word had already spread that a major investor planned to visit the town that day to discuss economic development projects. Local business owners and officials had gathered outside, hoping to impress the mysterious investor who might bring millions of dollars into their struggling town. None of them recognized the woman stepping out of the SUV. Amelia wore a simple but elegant navy blue suit. Her confidence was quiet but powerful. As she walked toward the group, whispers began. "Is that the investor? She looks so young. Who is she?" The town mayor stepped forward quickly with a welcoming smile. "Miss Carter," he said warmly, extending his hand. "Welcome to our town. We're honored to have you here." Amelia shook his hand politely. "Thank you, Mayor." More people gathered around, eager to introduce themselves. Among the crowd were several familiar faces. People who had once seen the frightened girl walking home from school. People who had watched her suffer but never said a word. But the two faces she was waiting for appeared a moment later. Harold Bennett and his wife Linda. Time had not been kind to them. Harold's once strong posture had become slightly bent, and Linda's sharp expression had turned tired and bitter. They had come because they owned one of the larger properties in town, hoping the investor might purchase it. At first, they didn't recognize her. Why would they? The quiet, frightened orphan they had abused had transformed into a confident and successful woman. But when Amelia turned toward them, something about her eyes made Linda pause. She stared harder. Confusion slowly turned into shock. "No," Linda whispered. Harold frowned. "What?" Linda's voice trembled. That's her." Harold looked again carefully. And suddenly, his face turned pale. "Amelia." The name spread through the crowd like electricity. Several people gasped quietly. Amelia Carter smiled slightly as she stepped forward. "Yes," she said calmly. "It's me." Silence fell over the gathering. The mayor looked between them in confusion. "You all know each other." Amelia nodded slowly. "Oh, yes." She looked directly at Harold and Linda. "They raised me." The way she said the words made the truth clear. Raised. Not loved. Not cared for. Raised. Linda's hands began shaking. "You disappeared," she said weakly. "You never came back." Amelia's voice remained calm. "You pushed me out into the cold and locked the door." Several people in the crowd exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had heard rumors years ago, but no one had ever spoken about it openly. Harold tried to recover his composure. "Well, you were always dramatic," he muttered. But Amelia didn't react with anger. Instead, she reached into her folder and handed several documents to the mayor. "These are investment proposals for the town," she explained. The mayor flipped through them quickly. His eyes widened. These projects could bring thousands of jobs. Amelia nodded. "Yes." The crowd began murmuring with excitement. Then Amelia spoke again. "But I have one condition." Everyone leaned closer. "This town must create a youth support center for abandoned and abused children." Her voice grew stronger. "A place where no child ever feels alone the way I did." The mayor immediately nodded. "That can absolutely be arranged." Amelia smiled. "Good." She turned slowly toward Harold and Linda again. "I also purchased the house you used to live in." Their eyes widened. "What?" Harold said. "It's being demolished next week," Amelia continued calmly. "In its place, we will build the new youth center." The crowd burst into quiet applause. Linda looked like she might collapse. "You're destroying our house," she whispered. Amelia's expression remained steady. "That house destroyed childhoods." She paused briefly. "It's time it built something better." For the first time, Harold looked ashamed. The powerful woman standing before him was once the helpless girl he had thrown into the cold. But instead of hatred, Amelia showed something stronger. Control. Justice. She had not returned to ruin them. She had returned to rise above them. Daniel stepped forward beside her. "You did good," he said quietly. Amelia took one last look at the town. At the people. At the past she had finally faced. Then she smiled. Because the girl they once tried to break had become something far greater than they ever imagined. A survivor. A leader. And a symbol of hope for others who believed their story had already ended. But Amelia Carter knew something important. Sometimes the darkest chapters of life become the beginning of the greatest victories. And the best revenge was building a life so powerful that the people who once hurt you could only watch in silence as you rise.